Okay. Hi, everyone. This is my episode number two. And as you know, that I'm going to talk about zero waste, I have my second guest, which is Ching Wei. And Ching Wei is very passionate about composting. I have met her only once, but I think the vibration was so strong that I couldn't resist to have her with me on my YouTube channel. And this is, I am here and I would let her do the talking. Please go ahead and tell me about you and your experience or your work in composting through some years. Yes, please.
Okay, hi Porvi. Thank you for inviting me to your channel. So composting. Now, how did I get started? Um, so I was working in corporate. I was a manager in a multinational, and this was back in Australia. And but I've always been very passionate about gardening and soil and healing the land. So I decided midpoint in my career to just stop and resign, and instead sold my house in the city and bought a piece of land in the countryside and just moved there. In order to prepare for my life there, I took up permaculture. So I am trained in permaculture design. And part of one thing about permaculture is zero waste and how to regenerate the soil without using artificial or synthetic materials. So compost is a very important part of permaculture. So when I moved to the land in the country, I was there, on 70 acres and just trying to figure out what to do. And that was where I learned composting. I mean, I taught myself composting because I had to do it. So over that was about 10 years ago now. So since then, while living in the countryside, I realized that even though I'm having a really good life there with clean air, water, rainwater, solar panels for electricity, that sort of thing. The most people actually live in the cities, right? And cities are so dense and crowded that people lose touch with nature. And so if I wanted to convey the beauty of nature and the importance of being connected with nature to human beings in general, I have to go to the cities. It's no point me sitting in my, on my country property and going, this is so good. And then, but degradation is still happening around the world.
Right.
So when I came back to Singapore, because I was born here, I came back to Singapore one time to be with my mom, and I met up with a friend, and I was telling her that, looking at all the apartment blocks that we're surrounded with, how cool would it be if everyone could take their food scraps and instead of throwing it down the chute, we could just compost, because I love composting. So why not like make compost with it? So that was in 2019, 2 years ago. So since then, so after I decided that that is what I truly would like to do, a series of things happen. It's almost like synchronicity. So immediately 2 months later, something came up that pulled me back to Singapore again. And that was with the Ministry of Environment. They invited me back to be part of a citizen work group. So that was where I started, and I could do I could put forward a project that would, I have about I think it was 2 months to complete it. So the project was, I decided to go and collect food waste in an HDB block. So I've never done that before. And so my team and I just went to an HDB block. We knocked on every single door from the top floor all the way to the bottom. That was about 110 units, 110 households. So we took 2 nights to do it, knocking on every single door, telling people that we are going to come and collect your food waste for 7 days as an experiment. It's for the environment. We're from the Ministry of Environment, and would you like to take part? So we were expecting a lot of rejection, but actually we did better than we thought. So about 25 households yes, I think it's about 25 households agreed to give food waste. So that is not too bad out of 110. The rest either rejected us or they weren't at home.
Mm.
So then that was how we started. So I started collecting food waste, and that gave me a lot of hope that actually Singaporeans would like to be able to contribute, but they don't want to do it by themselves. They want someone there that they can interact with. That is so important. So 7 days later, when we stopped the experiment, we said, we're not coming back anymore because this is the end. They were like, what
Oh,
are we going to do with our food waste now?
yes.
So that really, really gave me a lot of hope. So that was when I immediately after that, something else happened. Like a week after that, something else happened, which was some funding became available, but we have to pitch for it. So that's where the idea for Project Black Gold came about. So that one is totally on how do we promote community food scrap composting in Singapore.
Right.
And when we pitched the idea and we got the funding in 2020, we started. So my composting journey went from a very personal thing um, to a very communal thing. And it's a very, I really enjoy this progression. I didn't want to do this alone. I didn't want to, try to help the environment alone. I want to do it with a group of people. So Project Echo allows me to do it. And here we are, like we only met once, but it's like you're doing composting now, and that's so great.
Yeah, so when I started, as I was sharing with you, that I felt very alone, but I knew I wanted to do it more so because I just didn't want my kitchen waste to go in the shoe. That's it. So, and
Mm.
one of my friends, she said, just don't think about it. Just see any video you want to see on composting and start it. And but I had my failures as well. I will not say that it was a very, very easy thing to do for
Oh
me.
yeah, I had my failures too in the beginning.
Yes,
Yeah.
so yes, it did come out to be like a bad mix of greens and browns. So that is like my first question to you would be like, though I have figured out few things, but what would you say to a starter, a person who just wants to start? What is your tip that like with less failures, if I want to move forward, what should I do?
Okay. So it's how you build the pile and the proportion. That's all. So it would be, I would say, three things that you need to remember in order to make a successful pile, whether it's in a container or whether it's outdoors on the ground, which is you need to have two kinds of materials. One is nitrogen, one is carbon. So nitrogen is commonly known as green stuff, and carbon is the brown stuff, such as dried leaves, sawdust, wood shavings, cardboard, that sort of thing. So the second thing is the proportion of these materials. So proportion is 1 part nitrogen to about 2 to 3 parts carbon. So you always, when you have, let's say, a little bit of nitrogen, it means that you need 3 times that amount of carbon. So most people don't do enough of that.
Hmm.
So they put a few leaves on top of their food scraps and they feel like it's going to happen, but it doesn't work. Nature doesn't work that way. So I would say the third thing is all your bits and pieces need to be cut up small. And that is a bit time consuming for city folks. But it's totally worthwhile doing because it will guarantee that the microbial action will happen and it will happen faster. So let me give you an example. For example, you have like food scraps, like vegetable and whatever. And you then, if you don't cut up your leaves, they are not broken up.
Right.
So leaves naturally have a protective coating because the plant needs to protect itself. So even when it's dried up, it still has that protective coating. The microbes find it hard to get in there. They take time, so they can't do it very quickly. So when they take a long time, nature puts something else in place to break down that food scraps. And that is where you get maggots, because maggots is like microbes. They come in and do the job because it's their nature. So we shouldn't go yuck microbes, the maggots. Yeah, you should understand that this is nature's way of saying, no one is tackling this. I will send someone else in. So the maggots get in there, the microbes are slow. So that's why you get the smell, you get the rotting, you get whatever happening. So
Mm.
in order to help the microbes, you got to break everything up. So cardboard, leaves, twigs, branches, whatever, just put them into small pieces, tear them up, and then layer them.
Right. So
Hmm.
I
So
think
I forgot to mention, maybe number four is the layering.
uh,
So layering is like you make a layer cake, a lasagna. The bottom layer must always be carbon, and then you
mm.
keep layering them up,
Carbon
alternate.
browns, right? Browns, yeah. Mm.
So browns first,
White
and then
one.
green,
Dry wet,
and
dry
then
wet. Yeah.
yeah, and go up. So when you finish,
Mm.
use up all your greens. It's like the layer on top. You must never let your greens be exposed.
Mm.
So you need to finally put a layer of brown to
Mm.
cover it up,
Mm.
and then give it a good watering because it needs water. Microbes need oxygen and water.
Yeah. So one of the videos I was watching, they said put little bit of yogurt water. I mean,
Yes.
for the pre as if like probiotic thing for
Yeah. So the bacteria in yogurt is more like lactobacillus kind of bacteria. With the compost pile, you actually on every surface of earth, on leaves, in the roots, ever, there are already microbes. So all you need to do is to give them the conditions to thrive. That's all. So if anyone out there has no yogurt, doesn't matter. You just keep making your piles, give it watering, and it'll work.
yes. So I think it worked for me after a while. Almost, I tried this. The first thing I tried was the bokashi because I thought maybe I'll just buy the kit and it'll work by itself. But after the
Mm,
bokashi, I don't know, they gave you a packet where which you
yes.
can keep on putting. After that finished, I was like, now what? It's finished. Do I go and buy again?
You have to buy
Actually,
some more.
actually came to you, and I loved your way because we are just using the natural environment, things that we have, and we are using and reusing them to keep on the cycle on. So that is where I thought that there is no point just going online and keeping on buying more things that defeats the purpose of doing
Yeah.
composting, right? So
So when you have, let's say you have got your pile already and it looks like compost. When your friend wants to start a new pile and they don't know what to do, instead of using yogurt, just give them a bit of your compost. It's like a bit like the sourdough starter, or you know how you make yogurt with the the yogurt from the day before?
yeah.
Yeah, that same thing.
Great. Cool. So moving on from this from like how I started, and then after a while, there was a point where I thought now I want to engage in other people. So I think it is just natural way of moving into things where you are more interested if others are also with you, and also
Yes.
that I thought I need more space because I am creating compost and I need space. And if other families also join in, it will be a regular affair, and nature is doing the work. I just have to collect and put it there. So that is
Yes, correct.
where we found the place in the community garden, near the community garden. And I engaged two friends, and I think that was where you told me now what to do. So, can you tell me something more about how you're helping the community condominiums, because you told me there's a project where you handhold them and then take them to the level where this can be monitored. When more people are engaged, how should they proceed with
Um,
community composting?
well, that is actually okay. So I came back to Singapore to do community composting through this thing called Project Black Gold, and it's still ongoing. Um, what what I found is that you first of all you have to start with people who already have that interest. Um, And at first, I thought, who would be interested? Because if you'd never heard of it or you don't know it, how could you be interested? But actually, I found in Singapore, there are people quietly doing a lot of research online and quietly trying to start their own compost. So it's not totally unknown. But what was different is learning online was very different from learning in person. And experimenting by yourself at home is very different from going down with a group of people all kind of experimenting together. So Project Black Gold was unusual in this, not just for the composting part, but also for the hand-holding part, because I realized through my own learning experience that if I had someone to do it with me, I would have picked it up faster. And so therefore we decided right from the start that there's a hand-holding. So to create a community group, that part is a bit tricky, but not as difficult as you think. We have been working in Project Black Gold for over a year now. And the one thing I found that is really important with a community group is that you need leaders. So leaders, not someone who is like know it all. A leader doesn't have to be an expert. A leader needs to say that I truly believe in the vision of composting, and I'm ready to be here every session, whether there are people or not. I am there, and I'm setting the example of doing this because it comes from my heart. And that kind of leadership influences people to believe in it. It will take time. It's not a very fast kind of leadership. It's not like, you know, you sign up, like I want 50 people sign up and blah, blah, blah. It's not that kind of leadership. It's leadership by example. And anyone who wants to start community composting group should think about whether they are willing to be that kind of leader. To keep holding the space, to keep being there, to keep showing until gradually other people's mindsets are changed, and then their actions will follow. They will slowly gravitate towards this group because there's always a leader there, and they are willing to put in their time and effort too.
Right. So actually, trying to do that, and but I think one thing I also learned in this journey is it's okay. It's just let people not do it also, because even if you are asking them to do, though it looks like a simple thing, collect your waste and bring it down. Rest I am doing, or maybe a few others are doing, but still,
Mm,
it is not something which naturally comes to people. So the first thing has to be in your mind that I don't want to shoot it down the shoot.
yes,
So,
yes.
but it is I don't know, for many of the people here it is like, what's wrong in doing that? The government is taking care. We have incinerators and we are just managing our waste. The city looks nice, clean. So
Mm,
what is the hue and cry about it?
yeah. So I guess what people don't realize is our cities may look beautiful and clean, but it could also be a bit sterile. We could do with more life. So I think what people um, so I find that there are two ways of thinking about this, but generally one is like I don't want to waste things, so I would not I would save my food scraps. um, and people have been making eco enzymes, for example, by using up their food scraps, right? But now composting is a second way of doing it. You don't have to make eco enzymes, you can make compost. Both will produce good results that you can use somewhere else, so that's good. um, so that's one way of thinking about compost. The second thing is, if people look beyond food waste, which is about being sustainable, if they look beyond it and think regenerative, then composting and saving of food waste makes a lot more sense. So by regenerative, I mean regenerative is to create life. So being sustainable means that you just stick to your current footprint. You try not to overconsume or overstep. You just want to sustain it. But regenerative is you're consuming and doing your stuff, but you're also growing more life. So you're taking life in for yourself, but you're also growing more life. So I think compost allows us to be regenerative. It feeds our environment. It helps our plants grow better. It also makes our soil better because of all the microorganisms that we're introducing into the soil, which is very good for our gardens.
And I think one more thing, it is not very visible here because the garbage is not around. But in a
Mm,
country like India, I know that people know that there is so, wherever the population density is more than the government can manage, it is
mm.
just over and out there. And after a while, everything is in a plastic bag. So think
Yeah,
about, oh, those vegetables in a plastic bag, and then after years of being in a place, the methane gas and all the gases that they release, which are literally toxic, and they are harming the environment in a very bad way. So
yeah.
that the idea itself makes me feel that it is not just a little bit contribution that you're doing, it is actually urgent. In my opinion, it is urgent that just anybody and everybody should do it as a government mandate.
Yes, and I know India has a lot of composting movements. In fact, I follow Daily Dump,
Yes.
and they've got like these gorgeous containers that I've been wanting to.
Terracotta. I know terracotta pots
Yeah,
and self-composting, and yeah, there are good ideas out there. It's just that India
yes,
is so big that even if you have a small idea coming at one place, it is good that they're reaching out, but it is still not enough. Everybody and many leaders you need to do the thing for so many
yes.
apartments and just so much of food waste and things around. So there's a lot there, and the good thing is that once somebody is inspired there, then they do like one of the videos I was watching, let the whole condominium, the builder itself, they made a plant, and they told the people that we have to segregate the waste, and
Mm,
90 trucks of waste used to go to the landfill, and it came to 2 trucks that went to the,
wow.
yeah, because the segregated waste, the major was the food waste, that the plant they had was creating its own compost, and so they had a garden of their own later, and the other kinds of waste, especially the plastic waste, went to a recycler who makes plastic different kinds of bags out of those plastic wrappers, because they are a big garbage that it is difficult to do away with also.
Hmm.
So, and then electronic waste and all those things. But yes, I
Yeah,
was impressed by, because
yes,
this is something that in India this is even more needed, because we don't have so many big government projects where the government is having big incinerators and all landfill project. We don't have that. So
yeah.
yeah, their personal effort is even more important.
Yes, I totally admire that builder for thinking about all this when he was building that block, because it people are just, people, if we take a bit of time to think outside our what we're used to, like the builder redesign, these elements, it'd be great if all the apartments in Singapore have that.
Yeah, because it's a developed country and we are expecting even better things from a country
Yeah.
like this.
So,
Cool.
but
Yeah.
mm,
So there are inspiring people like you. I'm happy. But tell me one more thing. What do you think that, like, I think I heard from you once that you also went to a school to help them. So how are schools being incorporated in this journey? Because I think learning begins at that level. Because for me, I read it in books, but there was nothing like doing it. It only came from my own personal thought that it is a time to do it.
mm.
So,
Um,
what about, yeah, children getting engaged or schools getting engaged into managing their food waste?
well, the school that so many schools are interested. However, and we have been in a few schools, like just teaching the children or showing them what to do. So they each get a bucket, they put in the layers of browns and greens, etc. And then we're not there anymore. So the workshop is literally only, say, an hour. And so I feel that after a while, the kids are going to lose interest because it becomes just a bucket sitting there. So this other school that I've been in, it's a high school. So the students collect food scraps from the school canteen and bring it over. So twice a week I'm at the school, and twice a week someone is making compost. So they understand the whole process. They understand the story of soil and compost and microorganisms and that kind of thing. So they're doing it. And yeah, I find that because I do it with them for a whole year now, like almost every week I'm there, it becomes like a habit.
Yes, yes.
And when the compost is done, it goes into their garden because the students also have their own garden. So it's a complete closed loop
Yes.
cycle.
Right. That's important that you see the result of your produce to growing. There was a document. I was just like a PDF file. It said from peels to petals. So I was impressed by that title itself, from peels to petals. So when you see
Yeah,
that happening, so that gives you a lot of joy.
yeah, yeah. So um, it's really quite when you start getting into it, compost is a bit like cooking. So you can make compost with food scraps, but you can also put in a whole bunch of stuff. Like I like to put fish into my compost. So fish guts, all the parts that we don't eat, that we can put them into a bioactive compost. So not when you first start, because the compost is still sluggish and the microbial community are not active yet. But when they are, you can give it more stuff. And so what you make is a compost that is more nutritious. It has a whole lot more nutrients in it for the plants to take up. So you can play with different types of ingredients in the compost. It's like you make a base, a basic mix, and then you can add stuff to it.
And see. So I also started because I don't have a lot of food waste, but whatever I have, because that's also organic in nature, just that it has been cooked in some oil and it is cooked food. But
Hmm.
now I have started to put it in the compost. The idea is basically I don't want to even throw that into the dustbin, and also that it is not a lot with respect to the peels. That is a small amount if
Yeah,
any food gets wasted. So
yeah. So just water over it.
yes, I do add it now. I don't
Okay.
throw it yeah, in the bin.
Yeah.
So yeah, and small changes that I thought let me try and do that, but it absorbs everything. Maybe a few microbes will take some more time to eat it. But it
Yeah.
also gives me some idea that when we are talking up on our own health, the gut health. So
Hmm.
there also a good gut is with the peels and with the fruits and vegetables, and less with the cooked food. Cooked food usually takes more time to digest. So it is in sync with that knowledge that compost is also like that, right?
Yeah, it's totally is.
Meat takes more time to digest, like that, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, which is why I don't add meat into the compost too, because it takes a longer time for it to digest. The maggots will come in and do the job
Hmm.
before the microbes get to it.
Right.
So,
People
but
asked me this question in this condominium, why we cannot add meat. So that time I did not have an answer. I said, I think it
Mhm.
takes more time or something, or maybe we as new beginners are not ready to make a fast compost with meat. But yeah, I did not have a real good answer to that. Why we cannot add a food leftovers or food waste and cooked meat or something. So what apparently happens in other countries and communities when they do it on a very large scale, they collect it from every home and they wait.
Mm.
One of the ladies who has lived in Switzerland, she told me that they have given them bags. Okay, and if you take a big bag, it's costly. If you take a small bag, it is less costly. But this means this is your waste and this is your waste. Okay, so if this is your waste, anyways, they will collect it, and as the whole community or country, they will put it in a pile, and that pile itself, just because of the way it is, it will create that heat inside,
Yes,
and and once in a while the big truck will just do the rotation, or I don't know if it's called mixing, but it is like up goes down, down goes up.
yeah,
So
to kind of aerate it a bit.
yes.
Yeah, so sometimes that could I think on a very large scale, there are many ways to mix up the compost without it rotting. So actually the next thing I want to do is to go and see if I could get a large space and get more households to give their food scraps, let's
Mm.
say 100 households,
Yes.
and sign up to a program, give me their food scraps, and I make a huge mountain of compost with it. And I want to see how is that possible. That would be quite fun.
Yes, yes,
Yeah,
yes.
but I don't know where in Singapore I could find that space, because in Australia, for example, it's quite easy to get some space. So that is but that is my next thing.
Yes, I think it's a good one, and especially with this condominium lifestyle, we have 100 families in the same condo, so
Mhm.
we can definitely, in a coordinated manner, collect and in a truck full or whatever way it is, transport from the same place to wherever the land is. So
Yes.
it is, I think, quite possible. But yeah, I'm looking forward to that day.
Yeah, me too. I will let you know when that is happening.
Yeah, you
I'll
engage
sign
me.
you up for it.
Yes, yes, yes. Because that's what, when I say it's urgent, I feel that more households should do this basic thing of just segregating their food kitchen waste. And
Mhm.
if there is somebody who's collecting it, that is helping them in a way that uh, helping the environment, and they are doing their bit, which is a bit, yeah. So that should be
Yeah,
done, right? Mm.
I think so. And it will create jobs for people as well.
Yes, yes, yes. Mm.
Yeah.
Good. I do see that in Singapore, they have all the plants that are outside on the roads. Every
Mhm.
night, or some or the other place in Singapore, they're bringing the compost. So the compost, and they're putting it under the plants. So definitely, they are
Uh-huh.
making it on a regular basis somewhere, I think. Yeah.
Yes, they are, but it's mainly that one is mainly okay, so it's full of wood chips.
Yes, it is
It
full of wood chips, right?
it comes from N Parks, their prunings, and because they have a lot of woody waste, they just turn it into compost. So those kinds of compost is better for shrubs and trees, which is why you see them all over the place or at the base of trees. Because but for the kind of compost that we want to create, because we are growing food like vegetables and things like that, those kinds of food plants prefer compost with bacteria inside. So these are the intricacies of compost. Like there are a few kinds, and
Hmm.
um, bacteria-rich compost is better for growing vegetables for the vegetable garden.
Okay. I think I want you to elaborate a bit on that. Yeah. So if somebody wants a vegetable garden in the same condominium, what kind of compost it is?
Okay, so the kind of compost that I'm making with people in Singapore at the moment is a balance of both. So it's like a general whole food, like a general vitamin or
Mm.
whatever that you can, and it's useful for vegetables, and it's also useful for plants like shrubs, and like the chili plant, because those plants that are woody, they have woody branches with leaves. They are not a vegetable. Um, the kind of compost that I'm making is suited to plants like that generally.
Hmm.
Yeah. But let's say if I want to grow a fruit tree, like an apple tree or a lemon tree,
Hmm.
then my compost would have more carbon materials in it to encourage the fungal development. So fungal means the threads, like mushrooms.
Hmm.
So, okay, so when mushrooms pop up on the ground, we see it and we go, okay, so we know that it's a fungi,
Right.
right? But before it pops out, there's already a whole lot of the mushrooms actually live underground.
Hmm.
That when we see it popped out, that's the fruit. So the underground network of fungal population, it's it's what helps the trees.
Ah, okay.
So vegetables don't really go into that.
Right.
It's the trees that go into that. So
Yes.
when you have fruit trees, it's good to have compost that encourages fungal population. When
Yes.
you have vegetables, um, like your spinach and your bok choy and whatever, then you need more bacteria concentrated compost, because the bacteria will work with the roots of the plants and feed it and give it all sorts of nutrients.
Right. 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 Good. So I think I'll just ask you one last question. Like,
Mhm.
suppose there are people who are watching my YouTube channel and then they ask me, can we have a workshop on composting or community composting? Would you be interested to guide them?
Yeah, of course, because that's what I want to do, right? Is to see more and more neighborhoods around Singapore having their own neighborhood compost hub.
Right.
So in the three places that we're already setting up compost hubs, Bukit Gombak, for example, they're in a condo too,
Yes.
but the news have gotten up. So people who live outside the condo, like in other places, they would come over on compost making day, and through the condo wall, they would pass over their food scraps. They will cycle up or walk over, and then they just say here. So we're getting food scraps from outside, and that is the aim of a compost hub, is anyone can come with their food scraps.
That's true. Hmm. Yeah, I think
So yes, the more the merrier.
the more the merrier. Right. Cool. I think I'll give it a shot. Like, we'll close this meeting, but it was so nice talking to you. And
Yes.
I hope through this I have at least put the seed of composting in the head of some people.
Thank you for having me here. And I would love to come over and visit your compost
Oh,
pile.
yes, let's do that. I'll get in touch for that.
Yes.
Sure.
Okay.
Okay, wait.